Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Friday, March 28th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside will be mild today, with a high of 67.3 degrees and a low of 56.5, so you might want to grab a light jacket if you're heading out. Coming up on today's show, we'll examine the intensifying competition between Russia and the United States as they vie for control and influence in the strategically important Arctic region. Then we'll take a closer look at the significant impact of Trump-era health funding cuts on California's public health infrastructure and how these changes are transforming healthcare delivery across the state. We'll break down what these shifts mean for residents and healthcare providers alike. Stay with us for these stories and more on Alex's News. Our top story this morning takes us to the frigid politics of the Arctic, where Russian President Vladimir Putin has made some chilling comments about American interests in Greenland. For more on this developing story, we're joined by our international affairs correspondent, Ethan Thompson. Ethan, what exactly did Putin have to say about America's Arctic ambitions?
Grace, Putin is essentially saying this isn't just a cold case of recent interest. Speaking at the International Arctic Forum in Murmansk, the Russian leader claimed that America's current pursuit of Greenland is deeply rooted in history, not just a recent isolation policy, if you will. According to Yahoo News, Putin specifically pointed out that the United States first considered acquiring Greenland back in the 19th century, and later made a concrete offer to purchase it from Denmark after World War II.
So Putin is suggesting this is part of a long-term American strategy rather than a new development. What's triggered these comments now?
Well, tensions have been heating up in this very cold region, as reported by Perplexity API. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance recently visited the American military installation in Greenland, specifically the Patuxent Space Base, which is the northernmost U.S. military facility. This visit didn't exactly receive a warm reception, with Greenland's Prime Minister Mette Borup Egede describing it as very aggressive.
And how are the Greenlanders themselves responding to what appears to be renewed American interest in their territory?
The response has been decidedly frosty, Grace. According to recent polling data, a whopping 85% of Greenlanders oppose joining the United States. The Korea Jong-un Daily reports that President Trump has suggested the U.S. could get Greenland for national security reasons, but Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has been quite clear in her response, stating that Greenland is not for sale, and praising Greenlanders for standing firm against what she called unacceptable pressure from the U.S.
This seems to be part of a larger geopolitical chess game in the Arctic. How is Russia positioning itself in response?
You've hit the iceberg on the head there, Grace. Putin is definitely playing his own game of polar politics. According to the Mining Journal, he's vowed to strengthen Russia's military capabilities in the Arctic, expressing particular concern about Finland and Sweden joining NATO, which he views as fundamentally altering the security landscape of the region. He stated, "We will strengthen our military capabilities in the Arctic to safeguard our national interests."
Is it all confrontation, or is there any room for cooperation in Putin's Arctic vision?
Interestingly, despite the military posturing, Putin did extend an olive branch, as albeit a frozen one. Yahoo News reports that he emphasized Russia's openness to international cooperation in the Arctic, suggesting that stronger Russian positions could actually facilitate projects involving friendly countries and potentially even Western nations if they show interest. The Korea Jong-un Daily quoted him saying, "Russia remains open to cooperation, particularly with countries friendly to Russia and potentially with Western countries in the future."
And what makes the Arctic such a prize worth fighting over?
It's a treasure chest that's literally being unlocked by climate change, Grace. As the ice melts, we're seeing new shipping routes opening up and previously inaccessible resources becoming available. According to Perplexity API, the region is believed to hold substantial, undiscovered oil and gas reserves. That's why Kirill Dmitriev, head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, suggested that Russia and the U.S. should develop joint energy ventures in the region. Many Greenlanders themselves believe that Trump's real interest might be access to their mineral resources rather than national security concerns.
Fascinating insights into this not-so-frozen conflict. Thanks for helping us break the ice on this complex story, Ethan.
Always happy to drill down into the cold, hard facts, Grace.
We're continuing our coverage of major federal budget changes with a story that could have significant implications for California's healthcare system. The Trump administration has announced substantial cuts to federal health grants, with California set to lose over $1 billion in funding. For more on this developing story, we're joined by our health policy reporter, Chloe Bennett. Chloe, what can you tell us about these cuts?
Grace, this is what you might call a sick situation for California's health services. According to reporting from major news outlets, the Trump administration has terminated approximately $12 billion in federal health grants nationwide, with California taking a hit of over $1 billion. The Department of Health and Human Services announced these cuts in March, primarily targeting grants that were established during the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's a substantial amount of money. Can you break down exactly what types of funding California is losing?
Absolutely. The funding losses for California are quite comprehensive. According to state officials, about $709 million will be cut from COVID-related public health grants, $700 million from grants to the California Department of Healthcare Services, $103 million from county grants, and $169 million from University of California campuses. Dr. Erica Pan, California's top public health officer, confirmed that the CDC plans to immediately end pandemic-related funding that was originally scheduled to continue until 2027.
And what specific services will be affected by these funding cuts?
That's where the bitter pill comes in, Grace. These funds support essential services including respiratory virus testing, childhood vaccinations, public health data systems, and programs addressing health disparities. Michelle Gibbons from the County Health Executives Association of California warns that local health departments will see severely diminished capacity to perform vital functions. This includes reduced testing for infectious diseases, slower outbreak investigations, and a potential return to manually maintained spreadsheets for data tracking.
That sounds like a significant step backward for public health infrastructure. What about Los Angeles County specifically?
Los Angeles County is facing a particularly tough financial fever, if you will. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health expects to lose over $45 million in funding. This will impact their disease surveillance capabilities, laboratory services, outbreak investigations, and their ability to maintain data transparency for the public.
This is happening nationwide, correct? What's the justification being given for these cuts?
Yes, this is part of a broader initiative. The Trump administration and HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claim the funding is no longer needed, since they consider the COVID-19 pandemic over. They've stated they want to redirect resources toward addressing chronic diseases instead. In total, about $11.4 billion in COVID-era funding is being revoked nationwide, affecting grants related to addiction and mental health programs as well.
Are there any organizational changes happening at the federal level alongside these funding cuts?
Indeed, there are. As part of these changes, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, will be merged into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America. This restructuring could potentially eliminate up to 20,000 federal jobs, according to sources familiar with the plan.
How are California officials responding to these cuts?
They're scrambling to find solutions to this funding flatline. State officials are currently evaluating the full impact on existing projects and staffing. The California Department of Public Health has committed to finding additional resources to maintain essential functions. Additionally, Senator Scott Wiener has proposed establishing a California Institute for Scientific Research to support research and vaccine access if federal funding continues to diminish.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Chloe. It sounds like California's public health system is facing significant challenges ahead as these funding cuts take effect.
That's right, Grace. And while some of these cuts relate specifically to COVID-19 responses, public health officials emphasize that the impact extends far beyond pandemic measures to essential services that protect all Californians' health.
Thanks again, Chloe, for bringing us this important information. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. Here are some other headlines. A federal judge has temporarily blocked parts of President Trump's anti-DEI executive orders. Judge Matthew Kennelly of the Northern District of Illinois granted a restraining order preventing the Department of Labor from enforcing certification requirements for contractors and grant recipients nationwide. The ruling came after Chicago Women in Trades, a nonprofit that prepares women for construction careers, argued the orders were too broad and vague, potentially threatening their mission. The judge reasoned that the vagueness, combined with potential financial penalties, might coerce organizations into abandoning DEI programs, infringing on free speech rights. President Trump has withdrawn Representative Elise Stefanik's nomination for UN ambassador due to the tight GOP House margin. Despite advancing through the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in January, Republicans need every vote in their narrow 218 to 213 House majority. Stefanik has not resigned her congressional seat, indicating GOP leaders aim to preserve her vote. The party had considered waiting for special elections in Florida on April 1st before proceeding with her nomination. President Trump has signed an executive order ending collective bargaining for federal unions across two-thirds of the government, particularly at agencies with national security missions. The order affects the Departments of Defense, State, Veterans Affairs, Justice, and parts of Homeland Security and Treasury, among others. The White House cited a provision in the 1978 Civil Service Reform Act allowing exemptions from collective bargaining for national security reasons. Police and firefighters will retain their bargaining rights, but other federal workers will see unions stripped of their status as exclusive representatives. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to preserve signal messages about military operations in Yemen. Judge James Boasberg announced a temporary restraining order compelling the government to retain messages exchanged between March 11 to 15, after high-ranking officials inadvertently shared sensitive discussions about Houthi airstrikes with a journalist from The Atlantic. The lawsuit was brought by watchdog group American Oversight, which argued that auto-deleting messages violated federal record-keeping laws. The administration maintained no classified information was exchanged. Democratic candidates in special Florida House elections are raising unprecedented amounts of money. In Florida's 6th congressional district, Democrat Josh Weil has raised over $9 million, nearly 10 times more than his Republican opponent Randy Fine. In the 1st district, Democrat Gay Valamont has brought in nearly $6.5 million, compared to Republican Jimmy Patronus's $2.1 million. Despite both districts traditionally leaning Republican, Democrats see these races as opportunities to challenge the GOP's slim House majority. Republicans, concerned by the fundraising disparity, are taking these races seriously, despite Trump's endorsements of their candidates. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini Flash 2.0, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.